Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Silicon Insider podcast. Hi, Scott. How are you?
I'm good, Michael. Hello.
Hello. So we have the Trump Putin meeting tomorrow. We're not going to get into geopolitics here, but it's obviously going to have effect on the markets. It may have effect on uh, Silicon Valley, especially our military companies here and all that. So I'm just saying it's Thursday afternoon, so we don't know, but you will know by the time you see this. Anyway, okay, let's begin. Uh, you know the last week, obviously, last week the White House and Nvidia and Advanced AMD, Advanced Micro Devices, announced that they had reached an agreement that those two companies would be licensed to once again sell chips, AI chips to China. Now we know the rest of the story, which is Trump is, well, the chips are the H20 Nvidia and AMD's M1308. So they're comparatively, I say comparatively because these things are monster chips, but they're comparatively low powered compared to those companies' other offerings. So it was designed to, you know, figure out a way to get under the embargo. Well, we find out that Trump, in return for that deal, has demanded a 15% of the China sales revenues from those two companies. What do you think?
I mean, it wasn't just that he demanded it. The surprise to me was that he got it. I
Yeah,
mean, we know how Trump operates, and he wants to be a big part of these things. He wants to make money from all these things. I'm My surprise was that Nvidia and AMD agreed. I realized for them it's a good deal. As many people have said, 85% is better than 0%. But the
yeah,
idea of paying, I guess, essentially a tariff, right? A tax to the government for a sale is something I hadn't heard of much.
on American companies.
Right.
Well, we saw Trump do a turnaround on Intel this week too, where all of a sudden the guy he said should be, fired, arrested, or whatever. Now all of a sudden he's paying him compliments. And
Well, yeah, I mean, the government has, the U.S. Steel golden shares is
yeah,
the one that people are citing, but also remember back after 2008, the government took some shares in companies in order to keep them afloat and made
sure.
often good return on those investments. Although the idea of taking 15% or whatever share it turns out to be of Intel is, maybe as the days go by and as you're hearing this, we find out that this is either true or not true. But just on the report that the government would take a stake is really surprising. But the 15%, just going back to that for a moment on AMD and Nvidia, I believe is against the Constitution. So if that stands,
Yes, that was the next thing I was going to bring up.
yeah,
Is it actually unconstitutional
right.
to force companies to pay what is essentially a tax for even doing business overseas? So it's probably going to go to the Supreme Court. I wonder if what side NVIDIA and AMD will be on at the trial, because friends of the court going in front of the Supreme Court, whose side are they going to be on? Because if it can't happen, they're going to lose out of that 85%. And yet at the same time, you don't want to violate the Constitution the moment you start shipping parts over there and paying off the feds.
Well, I mean, look, don't let these companies off the hook too easily here, Mike. They're signing on to this deal.
Yeah,
They are signing on to violate the Constitution in order to make that 85%. Their
right.
stock prices have done reasonably well, especially Nvidia, even since then, in the short time since that deal was announced. 85% is better than zero. This is what they want to sell chips to China. I think the only people on the other side of this would be privacy advocates, those who are concerned about national security. In other words, the reason we weren't selling those chips to the Chinese in the first place. But
Yeah.
it seems that money has conquered even competition between the two countries, and that is worrisome.
Yep. And money's been known to do that
Yes, it has.
occasionally. Okay, on other matters, I have a kind of a bombshell I'm going to get to in a moment here. Um, but it's interesting. Cost of living numbers and inflation numbers are higher than expected. Uh, and they say it really is due to the tariffs. It's finally taking hold. But what's interesting is uh, only a little bit in vegetables, apparently, and produce, prices are going up really fast. And you can see why that would be, Mexico and Chile and the countries that provide us with our produce. Yet at the same time, uh, retailers are making more profits right now. It seems contradictory that if the if the supply chain is eating these tariff costs, how are these companies actually making more profits?
I think people are
If
still,
they're protecting us from the big hit on everything. How come they're doing better?
some are. I mean, when you say companies that are eating some of these costs, I think of General Motors and Toyota, and they're saying, okay, we're not raising the car prices just yet, but meanwhile, our earnings have taken $1 billion of a
Yeah,
quarterly hit. That's real money, even to a big car company. I think some of the retailers, and I've talked to even small coffee shops who are saying we haven't yet raised the prices. People are really appreciative of that because there is, as you know, this feeling of doom. Like if I don't buy something now, I'm not going to be able to buy it in the future necessarily. And so you do see a lot of shopping, you do see a lot of consumption, and if the prices haven't gone up that much, we will still go back to buy those sort of necessary, at least in our lives, those daily habitual things. And I think that's still happening, and we haven't gotten to the point where we were even 2.5 years ago, when inflation was really high and people were cutting back. I think right now the cutbacks are small. The PPI numbers and the CPI numbers showed a little bit of growth in inflation,
yeah.
not anything all that big or even all that noticeable, but the economists are hedging their bets when they talk to us by saying these tariffs keep getting paused. So we
Yeah.
don't really know what it's
No
like to
answer
live in an
yet. Yeah.
economy, right, with all these tariffs yet.
So, at what point does a coffee shop or a retailer or a restaurant say, what point does a dam burst? And they go, we just can't continue to eat these extra costs. It,
It's a
it, it seems to me it's one of these situations where nobody's going to do it. And then all of a sudden, one day, everybody's going to do it because somebody's going to raise their prices and everyone's going to go, okay, we got to do it too now. We're safe.
I agree, and that is often how things work. You're absolutely right. And the coffee shops tell me that so far they've been able to keep their staff on hand. They've been able to cut back a little bit on, well, we won't buy the expensive cream, or we'll cut back on some of the beans or whatever. We'll still make the product and we can keep our staff and still pay them. When that gets tough, that's when they step forward and say, okay, customers, we have to charge you more because we have to make more in order to continue with our staff. They don't want to let people go. They don't want to
Yeah,
noticeably cut back on things. And so at some point, I think you're right. Some do it, and then everyone's going to do it. And that is when, as consumers, we will really start to feel this thing.
that's when the screaming starts.
Well, that's when the decision making starts. Do
Yeah.
we need that coffee in the morning from that specific place? Do we need these things? By putting the pause on China for 90 days, that's going to get awfully close to the Christmas buying season.
Right.
And so when that decision gets made, that's really going to affect the economy if indeed people are saying, well, I have to cut back because all of the things cost more all of a sudden.
Do you think the administration's move on, even if it's unconstitutional, of taking a piece of the action suggests that something's going on between the U.S. and China? I mean, we haven't heard much about the tariff negotiations for a while.
Right. The last we heard is the 90-day pause, and that was recently. And I
Yeah,
think I'm not sure that anything's going on. I think what this deal, and if you're hearkening back to the Nvidia AMD thing, I think what it shows is that the administration is really all about the money. And China, I'm sure, is not missing that when it comes to tariff negotiations, even when it comes to TikTok negotiations. And so there might be some things on the table now that weren't before. And who knows if China will be able to take advantage.
Yeah, we'll see. Okay, crypto. They've been sitting on the sidelines about going into the markets and all of that. Well, it looks like that dam is broken because we're now starting to see IPOs. Apparently, rumors are they're lining up, and the first one is Bullish, uh, which is an exchange operator, and it Peter Thiel as one of its investors, and they went public Wednesday, and they raised over $1.1 billion. So are the floodgates really open? Everyone's saying, "Oh, here it goes! Here comes all the crypto companies," and Bitcoin had a great week. So, are we going to see a bunch of IPOs?
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, the idea that not just a Coinbase could go public and really do well, but a Bullish could do really well, at least in the early days. And don't forget Circle. This is a stable coin company, and it IPO'd and has gone higher. So I think so. There is such an incredible demand for crypto, yes, especially Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And it seems, and remember, for a while, Bitcoin was holding around 50, 60,000. A lot of people decided they wanted to play in the meme coins. And even Trump was getting into the coins and calling them Trump and Melania and all that. And I think people eventually realized that meme coins are a scam. And you're going to lose money full stop on those. The only people making money are the people that issue the coin. Whereas
Right.
Bitcoin has really gained in value over the months and years in a spectacular way. And that's, I think, where the appetite for these IPOs are coming from. It's why earlier this week we hit 124,000 for crypto. I almost hesitate to say any price if we're recording something, because by the time people listen to this, who knows what it'll be. But you've seen crypto grow gradually. And it just seems to be this big gold rush for Bitcoin and those crypto related stocks.
I mean, it'd be hard to suggest that that like Bitcoin is unstable. It's volatile, but it's not at the point. It's been a long time since it's been at the point that it's so unstable that you should just run away from it. I mean, it looks like a potential high risk investment now, which a lot of things on the stock market are.
Right. I mean, remember, we wouldn't even use Bitcoin in the same sentence as tech stocks. But
Yeah,
with the volatility in both, and yet the long term growth in both,
yeah.
I think Bitcoin has taken its place in the pantheon. And I still would not recommend it necessarily until you've paid your rent and your car payment and all that stuff. I get asked by a lot of young people, hey, should I jump into Bitcoin? But it has really proven itself, especially compared to a lot of the fly by night meme coins.
Yeah, and I wouldn't invest even in Nvidia before I pay my mortgage and my car payments and all of that. You
Smart.
know,
Yes.
it's a wise choice, but you got other things to take care of first. Okay, I just want to mention CoreWeave, which has been one of the hottest uh, AI stocks recently. They posted their second quarter results, and they came in at 1.2 billion instead of over 1.8 billion forecast, and more than triple last year's earnings. So they're doing great, but the market reaction was because they really haven't improved their profitability. The market's reaction was rough. I mean, this is a case of an AI stock that, like all the other ones, if you even hesitate, if you even miss a step, you're going to get punished hard. Uh, does that suggest anything about the AI market, though? Because I'm going to bring up something on our final subject. I'm going to drop a bomb.
Can't wait. In the meantime, I think it does suggest something. I think that the market giveth and taketh away. It's so
Yeah.
excited about AI companies. And even the last few IPOs have soared and then come back a bit to earth, much like a lot of these stocks. And I think it's just one of those things where if you're in this, you have to understand that there's a bit of a roller coaster, and it's generally positive. I mean, CoreWeave's market value, Applied Materials market value, bullish is going to do hot for a while, but these companies are going to get punished unless they are absolutely perfect and then some. But that's just because the hype is so strong around these companies. And that's not just a wave that only peaks. It goes up and down. And we've seen this pattern before. And it's just not for the faint of heart.
Okay, so not to give any advice, but is this one of those buy the dip moments in AI, or is this a peak that you want to sell?
The reason that I wouldn't give advice is manyfold, but one of them is that we just don't know because these companies are being priced like absolute sky high killers. And
Yeah.
Nvidia is one of those. They've made more money off this AI craze. It's been amazing. But the idea that some of these companies that haven't yet even achieved profitability are being valued at the ways they are is clearly, jumping ahead. What do they say? The cart ahead of the horse. I'm not sure of the saying.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Right.
And I think we're just getting ahead of ourselves, assuming that AI will be this gigantically profitable thing for both hardware and software and all the companies in the middle. And we just don't know that yet.
Okay. Let me read you an article. Rohit Kumar Thakur uh, just dropped this thing, and here the headline will tell you everything. Apple just pulled the plug on the AI hype. Here's what their shocking study found. And it was a team of researchers apparently at Apple. I don't have any verification of it, but they came to the conclusion that AI is not really AI. It's I want to read the phrase that Chat GPT, they're all promising that AI will reason, think, and plan better than the last version. And Anthropic's been, has its thinking cloud module and all that. But what if it's all an illusion? What if these multi-billion dollar models promoted as the next step in cognitive evolution are actually just running a more advanced version of autocomplete, arguing that they're just super fast search engines that with an attached linguistic model behind it that could turn it into writing that appears to be, by a human being, but in fact, they're just supercharged search, and that they're not really reasoning. They're giving you results, but they're not thinking their way through them.
I mean, I don't think that's shocking. I think we're not giving these models sentience yet, nor maybe will we ever. I mean, you're talking to somebody, by the way, who draws his salary to be skeptical about AI. So it's easy for me to say, yeah, these things do things better and faster than what they used to do.
Right.
And therefore, we call it something new. We hype it as something new. But we've always done that, Mike, right? I mean, the
Yes.
cloud, the cloud was everything. And there were a few of us that were saying, yeah, but we used to just kind of call that storage, right? And granted, it did it better and more securely, but it was storage. It was the way we
Storage.
stored
Yes.
things on machines. Yeah. And so I'm not caught up in the hype of thinking that, um, I'm going to find a Scarlett Johansson out there in AI. What we're going to find is a faster, I guess, better way of sorting things and finding things, which is, if you think about it, what we were doing more slowly with computers 20, 30, 40 years ago.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah. And so if it does it better, hey, there's value in that. I will give you that.
But
Is
is it
this the
enough? Is it enough to make these companies worth trillions? And is it enough to justify firing, a third of your programmers and replacing them with AI experts?
I mean, I would say no, but then again, um, and therefore, those trillions of dollars are one, but they can be lost. Be careful if you're investing in the AI hype because we've seen things hyped before and they haven't lived up to the hype. That's nothing new either. Also, as far as laying people off, we're laying people off because of AI. And yes, it hurts me to see that. But we're also creating tens of thousands of jobs because of these AI skills as people figure out how to do he's right, what we used to do, but how to do it better. And that takes human input. And so,
And by the way, you're giving the argument that we should have been listening to that AI, what AI taketh away, it also giveth. I mean, everyone's saying, oh, we're all going to be laid off, we'll be replaced by machines and all that. Well, we've heard that
right,
for 60 or 70 years, but it's going to create all sorts of new opportunities.
exactly. And it is doing that. And I wonder if the response to those of us humans that have to interact with an AI bot instead of a human, we may be the ultimate arbiters here and say, oh, when I do something with Salesforce, it's clearly a machine. I'm not interested. If enough people do that, Salesforce has to hire those people back and stop having us talk to bots. And that goes for every company that's just trying to automate things with AI. And ultimately, the consumer decides pretty much everything about our economy and will also decide whether AI takes over here. And so I agree. There is something to be said for doing something, even if we did it before, but doing it better and faster and more efficiently. On the
Yeah,
other hand, let's be careful before we buy in 100%.
yeah. The initial response is always, "This is magic." It's with everything, with calculators. I remember
Right.
the HP 35 was like unbelievable. How can you do that? They can do calculus. And my sense is, I asked my sons, I said, can you tell if something's AI? And my oldest son, who's a writer, he said, instantly. You can always there's clues all the way through that. I mean, you learn once you accommodate this new technology and get over the being stunned, you suddenly notice all the flaws. And
Right. And those flaws are
processes.
either, yeah. And if those flaws, well, and if AI lowers the cost of us to do something, maybe we put up with some of those flaws. But if it doesn't, because it has to pay for these $1 trillion valuations, we,
Yeah.
the consumers, will reject it. We'll say, sorry, I'm not dealing with that. And then the companies will have a problem that they will have to fix. And that's how it always goes with technology. Sometimes it hits, sometimes it doesn't. And, once in a while you get an iPhone, once in a while you get the cube. What are you,
Yeah.
what are you going to do?
Okay. That's it for now, folks. We'll see you in a week. You can see Scott, of course, on NBC Bay Area and Facebook and X. And for at least one more week before they cancel the show, I'm on the BBC Radio, World Radio, Business Matters. Take care and see you in 7 days. Bye bye.